Now welcome to another Let's Watch Some Star Wars. This time it is the 9th episode of Andor Season 2, Welcome to the Rebellion, where I will once again fire up the episode. I will rewatch it. I'll pause it here and there, maybe not as much as usual. This is a long episode, so I'll try to stick to some of the more important parts. But I will pause it, tell you what I think, what I like, what I don't like, and so on. And let's just get right into it, because again, we got a lot to cover here. Alright, so the episode kicks off with us seeing a reflection of the Senate building in a pool of water, and a storm begins, and we hear the thunder crackling in the background. Can't help but think there's a bit of symbolism here. Then it's on into the building where we see the Gorman senator is being arrested, and he's just screaming out, "Remember, Gorman, this is going to be you next." And, well, he's right, but no one is really paying attention to him because, again, the Gorman people, what has happened on Gorman, the massacre, has been painted as an insurrection, that the Gorman people would simply not follow the Imperial norm, and they attacked, and, well, that the Imperials were the ones who were slaughtered, not necessarily the Gormans. Even though when Bail and Mon meet up here, Mon is like, "Have you seen the numbers? Have you seen the number of Gorman dead?" And Bail is like, "Well, you're not going to see that on the Imperial news," but yeah. He mentions how the winner writes the story, which is certainly the case here. And then Mon is like, "I gotta do something. I gotta stand up. I gotta say something. And then we gotta go. We gotta get out of here. Who knows what the Empire is capable of anymore after Gorman?" But Bail's like, "Nope, I can't go. I gotta stay. Yavin isn't ready yet, but it does need a leader, so you make that speech and we'll get you out of here," basically. Next, then, we get a rather interesting scene of Cassian at Luthen's shop, and he's talking to Kleya, and Kleya is making him, or forging him, some credentials, making him a pass into the Senate building, because if Mon does make the speech, she's gonna need someone to get her out. And Cassian is like, "I'll do this, but afterwards I'm done." And Kleya's like, what do you mean you're done? You're done with Luthen, or you're just done?" And Cassian doesn't want to talk about it, and Kleya makes a guess that he wants to be done, and she kind of makes him feel guilty. Like, how could you just witness the Gorman massacre? You were there, you saw what happened, and now you want out? How convenient for you, basically. How nice of you to think that your part in all of this is done. Especially considering she's been in this fight for longer. She's been with Luthen who knows how long. Who knows what kind of set Kleya down this path and how she met Luthen and what the details are behind this strange relationship between Kleya and Luthen. But she's been in this a while. She's been living this every day for who knows how long. And so she doesn't want to hear Cassian saying he's done, that he's out, and that he thinks he has given enough when she has given absolutely everything. In this strange sort of way, I feel like Kleya is the most dedicated to the rebellion. Even more so than Luthen, or maybe not as dedicated as Luthen, or maybe they're about the same. But she's the one that kind of keeps him on the straight and narrow. Every time you see a crack in Luthen, every time he starts to slip, it's Kleya who's like, "You need to suck it up and carry on." Yet at the same time here, you can see Cassian's point of view as well. How much does he have to give? He's got Bix waiting at home. He has put her through hell. He has been through hell himself. He's been to Narkina 5 for crying out loud. He has lived through some crazy stuff. And you can't blame him for feeling like he's given enough and wanting to just go live a normal, peaceful life with a wonderful woman, right? You can't fault him for that, yet at the same time, there are a lot of other people in the galaxy who would love to do the very same thing, but can't because of the Empire that he is now going to essentially run away from and ignore. Moving on, we're in Mon's office, and Erskine is looking for and eventually finds a listening device, and Mon smashes it, and Erskine's like, "I know you want to practice your speech, but there's a good chance there's more of these things in here, so you're going to have to go to the plaza to do that, to practice what you're going to say tomorrow in front of the entire Senate, in front of the entire galaxy." Luthen then shows up at the plaza, and Mon is surprised, and Luthen just flat out tells her, "Erskine has been working for me." She's shocked. She's like, "How long?" Luthen is like, "Ever since the wedding, and that he has protected you in ways you'll never even know." And I think Erskine decided to work with Luthen just to protect Mon. I don't think he was in any way trying to betray her. I think he was doing everything he could to protect her, and he thought having Luthen as a connection was the best way to do that. Luthen even admits that Erskine wanted to tell her. Anyway, Luthen is here to tell Mon that you can't trust Bail's team to get you out. "I have someone that I know I can trust. You'll have to just trust me on this one." And she's like, "You're the guy I fear more than anybody right now. I know you're not here because you care about me. You care about what happens if I get arrested, because if I get arrested, they're probably going to torture it out of me that I've been working with you." Luthen then says to Mon's fears that we've all been bent by secrecy, which is 100% true. They've all been working in the shadows for so long, not knowing who exactly to trust or what exactly motivates everybody. Working like this has taken a toll on all of them. but now they're so close to having Yavin finished to being more of an open rebellion where you don't need to keep everything a secret all the time. Anyway, I think Luthen knows about the plan that Bail's team is compromised, I should say, because of Lonnie. I'm pretty sure Lonnie knew and fed him that information, which really makes me wonder what is going to happen to Lonnie here. Because even though Luthen is like, you can't tell anybody that you know Bail's team is compromised, because obviously that will go back to that there is a leak within the ISB. But I think the ISB has got to be figuring out, it seems like Lonnie's been giving a lot of information out lately. I think the ISB is going to figure out that Lonnie is a spy and that, well, he is going to be dealt with in the final story arc here. Their conversation then wraps up by Luthen telling her that the code is, I have friends everywhere, that someone's going to approach you, they're going to ask, are you alone? And that's what you need to say. He then says again, I have friends everywhere, very forcefully, kind of a reminder, not that she needs a reminder, but that he does have friends everywhere that she doesn't know who she can trust. And that to move against him in any way, shape, or form, or not to listen to him, is going to have a price. Next, we see Mon return to the office and confront Erskine, and she asks him, how long have you been working for Luthen? And he's like, 2 years, and she says she's never felt any more betrayed than she does right now, and she's had some experience with this sort of thing. And then she dismisses him, and I feel bad for Erskine. Again, like I was saying before, I think he was doing everything just to protect her. I think he saw Luthen as a means by which to ensure her safety better. And though you understand Mon's perspective here, the betrayal she feels because, well, he's working for Luthen, the guy she fears more than anything, the guy who just kind of subtly threatened her, I do think she might be overreacting a little bit here. I think you kind of need him, especially right now. But again, I get it. I get why she's upset, but I don't blame Erskine at all for what he did, I guess is what I'm saying. There's then another rather interesting scene, some subtle things in there that if you pick up on almost allude to Luthen having some belief in the Force and the Jedi, which kind of goes back to that Kyber crystal we saw in Season 1. And I say that because Luthen is kind of talking about what his fate is, that he knows eventually one way or another, no matter what he does, he is going to be caught and he's going to be hung, basically. Cassian is trying to tell him, like, you can come to Yavin, right? You don't need to stay here anymore. Your work is done. And he's like, I'm not going to Yavin. I'm where I belong. And then the conversation kind of turns and Cassian is like, I make my own decisions. I am kind of my own man. And Luthen is like, I'm not so sure about that because you came to me when I needed you most. You were there on all these different missions, all these different places. You were on Aldhani. You were Rao, you were everywhere I needed you to be, almost like something else is guiding you. This is kind of playing back to the previous episode, or episode 7, with the Force Healer calling Cassian a messenger. Again, I think Luthen is a believer in the Force. I don't know what his past is. I hope next week, we've been told we're going to get some backstory for him, so I hope we indeed get something next week. And I'm going to guess that I don't think there's like a Jedi connection. I know a lot of people are making theories that he was a former Jedi, or maybe he married a Jedi, or fell in love with one, or something like that. I don't think it's going to be that, but I do think it is going to be something Jedi related. My guess has been that he has been a collector of Jedi artifacts or antiquities for a long time. After Palpatine came to power, after the Empire rose, he had all of that taken away from him, and that is kind of what has set him down this course against the Empire. This collection was taken from him because it's basically contraband now. Anyway, again, it's an interesting little scene that I think implies Luthen is starting to believe, or has believed, that there is something special about Cassian, that he is always where he needs to be, that the Force is guiding him. And Cassian, of course, doesn't want to believe in that. He wants to believe he has free will. And yes, people in the Star Wars galaxy, even with the Force, have free will, don't get me wrong. He wants to believe he controls his own destiny, not that he is some kind of messenger or anybody special. Again, he kind of wants out at this point. He wants to go settle down with Bix. Not to hear I am something special that needs to stay and fight in the rebellion for who knows how long yet. We then see that Cassian has made his way into the Senate building. We also see that this team that Bail has put together have also made their way inside. Back at ISB headquarters, they're also trying to kind of keep tabs on Mon Mothma. They're talking to her driver, trying to figure out where she is and if this is normal for her to not show up or go home at night and all these sorts of things. A lot of quick scenes intercutting here as we kind of set up to the speech and the eventual, again, extraction. During all this, then, we see that the ISB has kind of caught wind of maybe some senators are going to speak out against Gorman this morning, and the head there at the ISB is like, they can't because the chair won't recognize them. Then there's a little conversation between Bail and Mon, where Bail is trying to tell her what the plan is. I have a team, they're going to get you out. And she's like, do you trust them? And he's like, of course, but I don't know them or anything, which is just, how it has to work. So she, of course, seems very skeptical after what Luthen told her about this team being compromised and that she's going to be escorted out by one of his guys. Bail is then talking about how we'll see each other again, kind of. A year from now, we'll be on Yavin because he's staying for now, but he eventually, of course, will have to go. And then he ends by telling her to tear this stuff down, though he didn't say stuff. And I feel like this is maybe a missed opportunity to say, may the Force be with you. I know the show kind of shies away from that sort of thing, but if there's anybody who would say that, I think it would be Bail Organa. If you read Mask of Fear, one of the things that is really motivating him to fight the Empire is to protect Leia, because he assumes she is Force sensitive. He actually, in that book, thinks she's going to be the future of the Jedi Order. Not to mention, we know Bail has close ties with the Jedi from days gone by. So I think it is a missed opportunity to say that, and instead to have to use profanity in Star Wars. I mean, I don't really care about that so much. It does feel maybe a bit jarring to hear that word in Star Wars, but don't really care about that. I just think it could have gone the other way. I think it was the perfect time to just use a "May the Force be with you." Either way, we then hear a senator giving a speech about what happened on Gorman and talking about the Imperial martyrs and how bad the Gormans are, and that we were warned long ago that there were voices raising the alarm about Gorman long ago, which, again, it goes right on back to the first episode of this season. That Imperial Ministry of Enlightenment and that propaganda they have been peddling all this time and just changing people's mind and warping people's mind about Gorman, making them think a certain way without even realizing why they're thinking that way. That whole campaign of theirs has come to fruition now because the whole galaxy just kind of, yeah, that's Gorman, right? This sounds about right. Those terrible people on Gorman have rebelled for no reason and slaughtered the Imperials. We then see all the pieces continue to fall into place. We see that Erskine is helping Cassian. We see that there is trouble in the little extraction team that Bail has put together. One of them was sort of caught reporting back to ISB headquarters and had to kill another one. And then when they go and meet up with the third member, they're like, I don't know where he is. We also see one senator yielding their time to Bail, and then Bail comes out and says, according to new Imperial protocols that have been put in place recently, a senior senator can yield their time to another senior senator. And so I'm going to give some time to Mon Mothma. The ISB freaks out. They're like, we need to cut the feed. They tell the guy at the Senate building, you need to immediately go and cut it. And he goes and finds that the door is locked, and there are technicians there who said, we fixed it. The lock has been broken all this time. It's supposed to be locked all the time. Anyway, Mon then goes ahead and makes her speech, and it's basically about the loss of objective reality, the death of truth. And when truth dies, it allows a monster who screams the loudest to be the one who is heard and to take control. And she names that monster as Emperor Palpatine right before the feed then gets cut off. And it's a fantastic speech. I think all of us in this day and age of the internet and misinformation, not that I want to get too political here, but I think we can all relate to the loss of objective reality and that whoever screams the loudest tends to be the one who is heard these days. Furthermore, I like that for the first half of the episode, we've had this kind of tense music in the background building the entire time, and then once Mon takes the floor, there is just silence for a moment. And once she starts to speak, we can hear the Andor theme, the theme of hope, you could say, kind of building slowly in the background now. I loved the score during this arc in particular, though certainly the score throughout the first two seasons has been exceptional. There's plenty of it that when I'm working or doing something around the house, whatever it might be, that I'm blasting some Andor music in the background. But anyway, again, the score, the attention to detail, just everything about the speech and how it is built up to, and the things she says, all perfection, I think. It's then obviously time for Mon to make her escape. The ISB has issued the order that she is to be detained. She is not to be allowed to leave the building. Cassian is waiting outside for her and says the whole line about we have friends everywhere, or I have friends everywhere. And Mon is conflicted. Does she trust this guy who works for Luthen, or does she trust the guys that work for Bail, even though Luthen has said they're compromised? And Cassian is doing everything he can to gain her trust and confidence. He's like, I know your cousin, I worked with Val, we did the Aldhani thing. I live on Yavin. I know about Yavin. You can trust me. And then reluctantly, she does seem to trust him. There's then a little incident when Mon gets off the elevator and all the press want to talk to her. They all want to comment. The ISB spy then first tries to encourage Mon to come with her, that there's a meeting she needs to attend and we got to get to gate 9, but Cassian is like, nah, you're not going with her. And so the ISB agent pulls a gun, tries to arrest Mon, and it is Erskine who's kind of the hero here. He distracts the agent and allows Cassian to shoot her. Erskine then stays behind to, again, protect Mon. As they're getting away, as Mon and Cassian are getting away, Mon is like, I can't believe you just shot that woman. This is the first time she's, been a part of this side of the rebellion, shall we say. Yes, she has been doing her part. Yes, she has been in danger literally every single day, pretty much since the Empire took over. But now this is a different side of the rebellion, and Cassian is telling her, welcome to the rebellion. We gotta go. We gotta get to the ship and get the hell out of here. The ISB then continues to try to shut everything down to block all the exits, but surprise, surprise, Mon and Cassian do make it out, but not before they are confronted by Cloris, that being Mon's driver, the kind of doofus guy. And Cassian finds out that he is an ISB agent from Mon, and so he just shoots him. And you do kind of feel bad for Cloris, I think. At least I do. I think, again, he is kind of a doofus that was alluded to when Erskine and Mon Mothma were talking in a previous episode about how we shouldn't get rid of him, because if we do, they might send somebody smart next time. So he's a random guy, probably has no idea how bad the Empire really is, and just working for them and reporting back to them about Mon's activities. And again, he just kind of dies and gets shot because, well, wrong team, basically. There's then a few more clips intercut together. We see Mon and Cassian getting away in the speeder. We see Luthen and Clea kind of preparing for the worst, just in case Mon does get captured. We see Bail in the Senate and kind of looking like, gee, I hope this was all worth it. And finally, we're at ISB headquarters where the director guy, I can't remember his name right now, but we get that classic Star Wars thing where the superior calls and wants an update. We hear that Colonel Yularian is calling and wants to know what's going on, and he, of course, has to give the bad news. At least it isn't Vader. At least you're not about to be choked to death, I guess. Also during this, we see Mon again in the back of the speeder with Cassian driving, and there's a moment where she sort of looks back at the Senate building, and I think the realization is dawning on her that that's part of her life is over, that this is over. She is no longer a senator after all of these years of service to the Republic and to the Empire, I suppose. The only sad part about all of this, about Mon's escape and the plan to escape and the speech and all of it, is no mention of poor Perrin. I am curious if we see him next week. I think we do see him next week in the final arc, final block. Can't believe they would have done all of this setup for him to not be mentioned again after Mon's escape. I'm curious if he in any way pays a price, or if his Imperial friends maybe can kind of save him, that he can play stupid and be like, I didn't know she was a rebel. I had no idea she was a part of this. Which is true. I don't think Perrin knows, at least as far as we've ever seen, that Mon is partaking in rebel activity. There's then yet another really quick scene on Yavin where Vel is doing intake, basically, of new recruits, and she's looking at the weapons that they have. She spots one on the table that is familiar to her from Aldhani. I don't exactly remember the symbol. I do know that, yes, Cassian did have 2 guns, and he gave one to Melchi after they escaped from Narkin 5 and all that. Either way, the gun belongs to Melchi. Just a nice little scene to show how he has shown up at the Rebellion, because of course he is going to be in Rogue One as well. Then we're at Luthen's safe house, and we see that, yeah, Mon has pretty much, I think, forgiven Erskine. Erskine did risk his life for her. Also, we find out that Wilmon is here, that Drina helped him escape, but that he has been injured and needs a doctor. Mon is then asking Clea if Luthen is here or if he's alright, because I do think, even though she can't exactly fully trust him and is afraid of him, she does have to be thankful that he got her out. That yes, Bail's team was compromised, and thanks to Cassian, she's here. Thanks to the guy Luthen sent, she is here. We then hear that Cassian is not going to take her the rest of the way, that they want to have a Yavin escort. They want to sort of rewrite history, which is kind of fitting because this is going to make it fit a little better into Rebels and all of that. But Gold Squadron is going to bring her in. She's going to give another speech. Again, this all kind of lines up a lot better with Rebels. Mon then says to Cassian, I don't know how to thank you. And Cassian is just like, make it worth it. Make everything that we just went through, that everything I have gone through to get to this point to help you, make it all worth it, because he's still planning to leave the rebellion at this point. But then we get back to Yavin, and Cassian gets back to Bix, who wants to make him some tea so he can sleep. And Cassian's all excited to tell her that I'm out, I'm done. We can go find somewhere quiet in the galaxy and live together. That is all I basically want. That the only thing special about me is my luck, and I have overplayed my hand, which you can understand. I mean, he's been at all these different places, all these different missions or incidents. Eventually, you think it's going to catch up to him. So you can't really blame Cassian for wanting to get out after everything he's been through. But as we see the next morning when he wakes up and Bix is gone and she has left him a message on the datapad that she has made a choice for the both of them, that she has chosen the rebellion, because she can't do that. She can't go and live somewhere and pretend everything is fine when the Empire is still out there. The Empire has scarred her too deeply to ever forget about them, to ever pretend that everything is okay. Furthermore, going back to the Force Healer in the 7th episode, or the first episode of this arc, she believes what that Force Healer was saying, that there is a destiny that Cassian has to fulfill, that he is a messenger, that there are good things, important things that he must do yet. And she can't be the reason that he doesn't do them. She can't be the reason that he leaves the rebellion and potentially allows the Empire to win. Or even if she knew somehow that the Empire would never bother them, that they could live in peace for the rest of their days, she's not willing to make that choice. She is willing to sacrifice. But Cassian isn't, and he is being forced to now, because what else is he going to do? Yes, he could probably go and try to find her, but clearly Bix has made up her mind. She wants him here, and that is something he has to accept. At least until it's over, because she says that once it is over, we can find each other again, or I will find you, instead of it being the other way, where she has said in the past a few times, I know you'll find me. This time, she says, I'll find you, but we of course know that's never going to happen. The sad thing is that in a way, she is condemning him to the destiny she believes in, and that destiny, that fate, is to eventually die on Scarif, stealing the Death Star plans in order to, yes, save the rebellion and save the galaxy. She is right. He does have an important part to play, but by sort of forcing him down that path, she is killing him. Well, that's a harsh way to put it, but you get what I'm saying. She is condemning him to fulfill the destiny of dying for the cause and eventually helping save the galaxy. This is the moment that, for me, the show truly earns the name Andor. I know a lot of people don't like that name or think it should have been called something else, and I still tend to agree with you that they could have chosen another name. But it's right here and now that the show earns the name of the show itself, that Cassian earns having this series being about him and, yes, a lot of other characters. But it's right here that all the questions about why do we do a Cassian Andor backstory of all characters, why do we do that when there are so many other choices? Well, it's because the show has built him up to be such a fantastic and deep character, and it has built to this moment where you just feel his pain, where he loves Bix, he wants to go and live with her, but she makes the choice for him to stay, and they are never going to see each other again. They don't get a happy ending in that respect. Yes, the Empire is defeated, but at the cost of their love. This scene, everything that has happened between Bix and Cassian, almost makes us wish that Rogue One wouldn't happen, or wouldn't happen the way it does, despite the fact we know the eventual outcome of those events. Again, that the rebellion is going to win in the end. And that is because we care about Cassian, we care about Bix, we want to see them somehow end up together, and yet we know that's not destined to be. The episode then ends with them having put back together the KX droid that Cassian took from Gorman, and it is, of course, K2SO, and I think we can safely assume that in the next and final story arc, the final story arc of Andor, the final few episodes of this amazing show, we'll get to see these two on a mission or two together, and I'm looking forward to that. I loved K2SO from Rogue One. It's going to be interesting because that's going to add a lot of levity, I think, because, yes, K2 is a humorous character. I'm not upset. I'm fine with it. Don't get me wrong. It's just going to be an interesting change of pace to again have some humor and some levity brought to us by K2SO, voiced by, of course, Alan Tudyk. And I am looking forward to the finale, the final 3 episodes, for that reason and many, many more, because this show has just been phenomenal. This story arc was phenomenal, and my only question going into the finale, or one of my big questions, there are tons of questions going into the finale, but how can the finale top this story arc? It was exceptional. This was, hands down, these 3 episodes, some of the very best Star Wars ever. And I've seen some people saying the best Star Wars ever, which I don't know that I can agree with that. I don't know that I can fully disagree with that either, but it is what it is. It was phenomenal. And somehow These 3 episodes have to, in a manner of speaking, they don't have to be better than this. They just have to live up to this and give us a satisfying and amazing conclusion to this fantastic show. Alright, that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn. Take to the comments below. Tell us what you thought of this 9th episode of Andor Season 2. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you somewhere in between? Or is this some of the best Star Wars ever? Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.